In this episode of The Game Adventure, we're covering a retailer rebellion against Nintendo's new dual pricing model, the developer who just paid out a $3,400 bonus to every employee, and talking about the lost art of struggling through a difficult game. Let's go. The Game Adventure Podcast is a weekly, family-friendly show keeping you up to date on all the latest news in video games. We'll also mix in a heavy dose of nostalgia with retro games and even things like how the worlds of tech and culture and even faith interact with video games as an art form. We're doing it all in less than an hour every Saturday morning, so let's get started. What is up, everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic week. It has been a very busy one in our household as kind of school starts to wrap up. We have a choir concert for my kids. All of the normal, May end-of-year things are starting to happen around the school year. And the weather's getting super nice outside. We like to spend time outside during the summer gardening and doing, going on walks and stuff like that. So I'm always kind of torn by the time May gets here. Because historically, May and June have been kind of a big time of the year for, video game announcements. And I get excited about some of the new games that are coming out. But at the same time, it's kind of getting nice and I want to go outside. And so I never know, what do I need to focus on right now? So let's go ahead and dive into some of the industry news. There's quite a bit that happened this week. I actually commented on a post about a week ago where someone shared that somebody had done a glitch in the beginning of a game that allowed them to beat the game in under a second or something like that of actual gameplay. And I said, I think this is the point of video games, but it's kind of a weird little thing that they were able to do. And actually got into a kind of conversation with a couple of folks talking about, actually there's two different kinds of speedrunning, and speedrunning is something that I have never really understood. But that being said, there is something kind of cool that was announced this week. There's a group called Games Done Quick, which is a nonprofit that raises money with speedrunning. And so Games Done Quick is doing this European debut at Germany's Gamescom. And so they'll basically have a marathon that runs for 3 days with live on-site audience and daily broadcasts running from 4 a.m. to 2 p.m. So long broadcast days. This kind of represents a global expansion for this particular charity-driven group. And I think it's a kind of an interesting thing. I understand now that there's two different types of speedrunning. And speedrunning is when you try to beat the game as fast as you possibly can. And one is any type where glitches are allowed. You take advantage of different things in the software so that you can, jump through walls and skip to a place where you're not supposed to be, and then use a glitch that resets the game at a certain point. And then there's also glitchless runs, which is basically you go as fast as you can through the game and take advantage of different points in the game that are, broken from the developer's standpoint. You're not supposed to jump off that and skip to this level at that point in time. So that's speedrunning in a nutshell, and I was educated on that this week. So I still don't completely think that is what video games is about for me. But that's the wonderful thing about video games, is that it can be different things to different people. A cool thing, we've talked a lot about Crimson Desert, how that has been a wildly successful game. And for the developer Pearl Abyss, it has made them millions and millions of dollars. And they decided that one thing that they wanted to do, because it has sold so incredibly well and so fast, they decided to pay out a $3,400 bonus to every single employee. So they created this game with in-house proprietary technology. They just dropped a massive patch, adding some difficulty settings and new pets in the game. I think this is a really great example of a developer who gets it, that people who work really hard and do a great job on a product should be rewarded. And actually doing that makes them want to continue to work hard to create projects and products like this. So way to go, Pearl Abyss and Crimson Desert team. Another update coming to a game way later. I saw this as kind of a weird side article, was that the Outer Worlds has been updated. The Outer Worlds came out 7 years ago, and the Outer Worlds 2 is going to be coming out shortly, and there's a patch that they just released. I had to double check because I'm wait a minute, the Outer Worlds, that's not even, the second one isn't even out yet. No, it was about the original game, is finally getting an update that allows for throwable grenades which is interesting that this far after the fact, they're adding something that seems pretty significant to a game like The Outer Worlds. I think that's cool on one hand that they are continuing to add stuff post-launch to a game even 7 years later. And it does kind of, for me, mark a continued shift away from this like one and done release cycle, even a little ways out from actually releasing The Outer Worlds 2. They're still doing stuff with the original game. So I think that's cool. The Switch 2 has Nintendo introduced a pricing structure where they were going to charge $69.99 for the physical games. That was not newsworthy, but they announced about a month or so ago that they wanted to offer the digital version of these games for $10 less. So for $59.99, you can get the digital game of these new games that are coming out for the Switch 2, and $69.99, $10 more if you want the physical copy. Now, that's created some talk around the water cooler for sure. People are saying, some folks are mad, I don't want to pay more for a physical edition. This is them just trying to make an extra $10 off me. And other folks are saying, actually, the price of a video game has been kind of stayed the same even as inflation has gone off the rails and everything else got more expensive. So $70 makes sense, and I actually think it's cool, this is my opinion, that they're taking it $10 off for folks who want to get it digital. I have often said, there's really no reason that the physical and digital editions of a game should be worth the same price because they're not even giving me anything physical for the game. And if I want to buy digital, I should be able to save some money on that. Now, $10, not a lot, but it's something. The news this week, though, is that Walmart and Amazon both said, well, we're going to continue to discount our physical pre-orders by $10 to match the digital price. So if you are a physical game fan, you can still pre-order through Walmart and Amazon and get $10 off the game. And that's their choice. My kind of takeaway from this is that the media price hike that Nintendo did is probably here to stay. Price increases are a normal part of living in a world with, again, runaway inflation where things are just getting more expensive. And it's nice that these, companies are trying to save $10 and get people to come and buy something from them. Back in the day, which was a Wednesday, Dane Cook fans out there understand that, you would have special pre-order bonuses. And so like if you went to get a pre-ordered copy that you had pre-ordered at a retailer like Best Buy, they would give you, here's a steel book, a little case to keep it in, or here's like a plastic sword that comes with it. That's how they tried to get you to come. And so now this is Walmart and Amazon basically doing the same thing, but with $10 off. If they want to eat the cost of that $10 and that's what they want to do to get more foot traffic into their stores and keep customer loyalty high, I say more power to you. And if you like the physical editions of things, Amazon and Walmart might be your friends in that mission to save $10. The last big kind of industry news story is this PS5 DRM confusion that happened over the last week. So basically, after a March 2026 firmware update to the system on PS5 and PS4, users started noticing this like timer. It was like a valid license timer on new digital purchases. So when you bought something, it basically started a 30-day countdown, and it required the system to check in with Sony online after or within that 30 days to verify that, yes, you had purchased the game. So the original conversation was, oh my gosh, the Stop Killing Games group was like, this is the worst thing in the world. Deep concerns over like digital ownership versus long-term preservation. Like if I have to log into the internet every 30 days to tell my system that, yes, I do own this game, what happens long-term to my ownership of this game? And that's an interesting conversation, I suppose. I do think like we want to preserve games. I do think there's something to be said for fans who we want to own a game that we buy. We don't just want to kind of have a license to play it for as long as you want to grant that, and then you can revoke it at any time. That's a good question to ask. Is that something that we want? However, the wider discourse revealed over the course of, I think this was actually just today that I saw this. Sony finally made a comment and said, we're really only doing that checking with our system within that first 14-day return policy. So what they're trying to do is stop you from being able to buy the game and then return the game, but go offline so that your system still thinks that you own the game, but you actually returned it already. So this is just a protection Sony is saying to say after that initial 14-day return policy expires, then it stops being a temporary license and goes into being a permanent license where you don't have to have that 30-day check-in anymore. So there would have been no way for anybody to know that until we got to that 14-day refund policy, which is why sometimes it's good to just take a breath and wait and see how things work out. It wasn't Sony being evil. It was just them making sure that people didn't take advantage of the return policy. So does that also introduce an interesting question, though? I think it does. That, remember, these companies that are giving you a digital product are really only giving you a license to use that product. And they can remove that license at any point they want to. And because of the way that the whole ecosystem is set up, they can remove your license and ability to play that game at any time they want to. It really is. You need to understand that when you buy digital video games from these companies, you need to be okay with the fact that they are licenses to play those games and not actually owning the game like we once did on a disc, which kind of brings in an argument. Should you actually buy the disc? If you're really concerned about that, you might. I'm kind of on the fence here where I am big on game preservation. I really think that we need to preserve this as a type of art. I want to own my games, but I also recognize that that is not really what companies like Nintendo and Sony and even Microsoft are selling at this point in time. So worth continuing to talk about, but that is kind of where that particular story ends for now. So let's move on to the tech update. There was lots of talk this week about a brand new controller from the folks over at Valve. The new Steam controller has next-gen magnetic thumbsticks, track pads, and it holds like 35 hours of battery. I think the one thing I saw the most about the new Steam controller is this like little magnetic power cable that kind of clips onto it. And so a lot of their ads and influencers and people online were like sliding the controller across the desk and it was connecting automatically to this little magnetic cable, which isn't so different from like Apple's charger from forever ago for computers, but it's kind of a fun thing, I guess. It also allows you to play with much less latency if you play through the cable itself, if you're really concerned with response time from that controller. They did price it at $99, which is a little on the high side. However, this looks to be a really high quality controller, and it really rivals the DualSense Edge controller and the Switch Pro controller, especially the Switch 2 Pro controller. So that's kind of, I mean, I think $100 price point is not completely insane, though it is a little on the high side. And the confirmation of the Steam Deck 2 being in development does kind of keep this portable PC market going. It's exciting to see. If you log on to the website for Valve, you'll see, or I think it's actually through Steam, but I looked through all of their hardware and they've got a really cool like interactive display with the Steam boxes that are coming out and the Steam Deck, and they don't have any mention of the Steam Deck 2 yet, but that is in development as we speak. And then their new VR setup, it's a really cool thing. So I think Steam is going to be doing some really cool stuff here in the next year or so, and I'm very excited about them and kind of the way that they're bringing back PC gaming to the masses, depending on how much their systems end up costing. Because with PC, that is a very real concern. But if you're a Sony fan or an Xbox fan, you're not out of the woods either. Everything is getting more expensive. So the ROG Ally, which is Xbox's handheld device that they did in partnership with Asus, is due for some updates. They're doing updates to both the Ally and the Ally X, including some docking improvements for external displays, enhancing the vibration, and even a gamepad cursor feature, which helps you to move around with a cursor using the thumbstick, which is important if you're on a kind of PC-centric device like the ROG Ally. More importantly, though, Microsoft did add this auto super resolution upscaling to the Ally X. So Microsoft is coming in with their own version of how do we upscale things, how do we raise the resolution, especially on a portable device. And the Auto SR super resolution is kind of their version of that. Asus is relentlessly pushing software-based performance gains, and I think that's really what's going to continue to happen in the portable hardware market. They're going to try to gain through software because hardware is limited. But it might not actually be that limited for long because Intel is working on a new processor. These are their Panther Lake processors. I don't know where they come up with these names, but they're pretty awesome. Panther Lake processors are these very powerful, power-efficient handheld processors. They'll have up to 12 cores, and what's interesting about this is that the system is being made to be obviously more powerful than anything that they've put out before, which will really push the graphics to the bleeding edge with AAA games. However, they also have the ability to kind of shut down or park certain high-performance cores during less demanding games to save battery life, because with handheld technology, that is kind of the trade-off. It's I want really good graphics, but also if my battery dies after only 45 minutes of playing this game, then I don't really want graphics that much. So one solution that they're coming up with is we can actually shut off the ones that aren't in use. It's kind of the same idea as, hey, shut off the lights that you're not using in your house and you're going to cut on your power bill. The same thing for a portable kind of setup. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of an impact those types of processors have on the handheld market with future handheld consoles that are coming down the line. Another kind of cool controller is the HyperX Clutch Talon. I saw this week, and it has a hot swappable, like multi-platform gaming controller that is officially Xbox certified. This really solves the problem of kind of different controllers for different systems, if you can move one throughout all of them. I have really struggled with that being a Nintendo guy. I play Switch 2, and then I go to my Xbox controller. And then it doesn't bother me so much with like a mouse and a keyboard if I'm playing on a computer, but using a different like third-party handheld controller for that, I'm always like the X and the Y are in a different place and the A and the B are in a different place. And it feels a little different and the bumpers are different. And so it's kind of cool to be able to take one controller between multiple systems. It kind of feels like the equivalent of if you had to wear a different pair of shoes every place that you went to hike. That would just feel weird and it feels a little bit off. It's like more disconnection from the world that you're trying to interact with. So this gives you a good pair of digital shoes to wear as you play through your game. That's the weirdest description I've ever given to a controller. So there you have it. Some more ray tracing conversation came up this week. There was a new, I kind of talked in the last couple of weeks a lot about is ray tracing really, if we're not able to pull off ray tracing or path tracing without using AI to translate it in the end so that the end product is only giving us like an AI version. So like one way that they say they're trying to make ray tracing work is they'll downscale it and then say, we'll first use ray tracing on fewer pixels and then we'll use AI to upscale it. But if AI is giving you the final version, is it really truly ray tracing, or is it just an AI image that you're getting in the first place? So one kind of cool direction that I saw that pushes back on that and says, here's another way that we could do it. It's a white paper that showcases this Restir PT is what it's called. And the technology is an algorithm that combines direct and indirect lighting. So let me kind of dig in a little bit here. The way that ray tracing works in a room where you're trying to understand the light or tell the engine how to understand the light is it traces the path from the light source. So like if I'm shining a light from, let's say on a pool table, from the overhead light, the overhead light that's shining right on the pool table, all the light coming from that source and bouncing off of the balls and the table is that's direct light. And then you have secondary light, which would be coming from its indirect light, coming from the light bouncing off of other sources. So if there's that light from the top bounces off the table and actually hits the bottom of the pool balls a little bit, that gives you another light source. And so one way that ray tracing was struggling is that it had to compute each one of those paths separately. And what this algorithm is doing is it's saying we're actually going to kind of do a top-down approach, and we're going to follow that same beam of light from the source to everything that it bounces off of and hits as it goes. And so that really cuts down on processing power, and we can do a lot more actual lighting using the technology without having to bring in AI to actually tell us what it means. So I think that's kind of a neat way that technology is moving forward without strictly just using AI. So we'll see what comes of that. People are definitely thinking about different solutions to the problem, and I like to see that. Last on the list is that Xbox mode on PC's got an update. So Xbox mode is I think Xbox on the PC has been an afterthought for a long time, and maybe that's starting to change. They brought kind of a console-esque, kind of Valve big picture mode kind of thing to PCs now. So it allows you to bring in your libraries from different PC storefronts and cloud games, and it's basically giving us an interface to use so that your PC can feel more like an Xbox, which begs the question, what is the Xbox supposed to feel like on a PC? Well, this is their answer to that. So let's talk about a point of view I've got, and this week we're talking about the lost art of the gaming notebook. When I was a kid back in the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, and we were playing games, you kind of had a certain number of things that you had around your gaming console or computer. And you usually had things like paper and like maybe even a notebook with scribbled notes. You had like printed out pages from message boards and checklists that you had found. Maybe if you really got lucky, you had one of those Prima game guides sitting on the corner of the table so that you were going to kind of work your way through the game using the game guides and all of the resources that you had available to you. I say message boards because you wouldn't just go look up the answer to something. You would have to go to a message board and ask a question and see what other folks had talked about with solutions for things in the video game. And it kind of created this place where games like the Ocarina of Time or Metroid Prime weren't just games. They were like kind of homework, but in the best type of way, where you were working through the puzzles and the difficulty of the levels and trying to get tips and tricks to actually beat that section of the game. We used to kind of have to be our own cartographers, our map makers. If you didn't like make a note, if you didn't write down what the guy that was giving you the puzzle clue said in the game, you were kind of out of luck. And so there wasn't this like objective marker that was always floating to tell you where to go next, or a path that told you where to go. You kind of had to figure it out from notes on a page and like notes about, okay, then you turn left at this part and right at this part. And the thing about that is the difficulty of that experience and having to work hard to solve the puzzles and find a solution was actually what made that solution stick. So like there's still instructions I can give you today that I remember from games that I played during that era of my life as a kid, because those places become a part of your life that you've kind of memorized. And you also get this like aha moment that's like you put in the effort and you spent the time and it's like, oh, now I finally got it, and you feel good about it. And when you remove the time and the effort and you just click a YouTube link, you're essentially short-circuiting that reward. You've got the answer, but you've kind of lost the sense of victory that you actually accomplished. And so that's very different. The modern digital guide with YouTube and AI and being able to Google an answer immediately. That's different from your old like printed manual or a notebook that kind of acted as like a travel journal almost on your trip through these games. And so we've kind of developed a new culture around definitely immediate gratification, where if a puzzle takes longer than about 60 seconds, I've already got the phone out and I'm already looking it up. Hey, what's the solution to this? I don't want to have to go back and talk to that guy. What's the answer to this? And so every secret of the game is kind of, data mined and uploaded into a wiki within about 2 hours of the game coming out. So there's no more experience of like the playground rumors and have you figured this out? Because we can look it up. We feel like we should. And the question that I have is that really a good thing or not? The reason this came up is my son started to play through the Ocarina of Time for the first time. And it's one of the greatest games ever made, but it's also pretty vague by modern standards. The puzzles are not necessarily self-explanatory. They might seem that way to those of us who played the game when we were young. I don't remember all of the solutions, but he's asking me. He's saying, can you help me with this? Hey, what's the answer here? How do I get through this? And on one hand, I want to help him because he's asking for help. I don't want to just, brush it off and say, you're going to have to figure it out. But at the same time, I don't want to steal from him a sense of accomplishment that comes from figuring it out on his own, because that's one of the greatest memories I have from those games is finally figuring it out or figuring it out with a friend. So how do I act as that like friend that's going to help him work through this and not ruin the experience by just giving him the answer? How do I teach him how to solve these problems? I don't know. That's something that I'm struggling with, trying to figure out. How do I do this the right way as a dad? And I suppose you could expand that beyond just video games. Like, how do I help my kids while also challenging them to figure things out for themselves? My daughter's playing through Luigi's Mansion 3, and she gets to spots and just doesn't know what to do next. And I remember being in her shoes a number of years ago when I was playing that game, and I just didn't know what to do next. And so I kind of have to give her little hints. That one I remember a little better. And so it's like, oh, I wonder what would happen if you, instead of sucking with the vacuum, you turned it around and blew on that leaf over there. And then she figures it out and she's like, oh, I get it. So that's the kind of experience that I'm looking for. But I'm also looking for that experience for myself. I kind of miss that experience of figuring things out and kind of wrestling through things. And so something I did for a game a little while back was I started a gaming notebook where I didn't use my phone to look up all the details. I did print out like a guide for some of the achievements so that I knew what I was kind of looking to do through the game. But I wrote down stuff in the notebook as I did them, and it actually made the game more fun. I remember more of it and I enjoyed more of it. So here's my challenge to you to maybe think about doing. Think about kind of going dark for the next game that you play, at least for the first playthrough. Put your phone in another room, grab a $2 spiral notebook, and take notes and enjoy the process and see how that game feels to you. Maybe the point of a game isn't to necessarily finish as fast as you can. Maybe the point of these games is actually to have an experience that's going to make memories that you can enjoy. So that's my challenge to you. You'll have to let me know how that goes. See how that works out. Let's talk about some retro games on the Retro Rewind. My friend Dylan told me that the Retro Rewind is the name of a YouTube channel that he watches, so I might need to find a new name for this segment. If you've got any ideas, let me know. But we've got lots of retro news to talk about this week. The Anbernic RG Rotate that we've talked about before is a new handheld that's a emulation handheld, and it has a 3.5-inch 1x1 display, so square display that physically slides up and rotates to reveal a hidden gamepad. It is going to release, pre-orders I think go through May 11th, and it's going to be right around $100. The plastic version is $88, and the metal version is $108. So depending on kind of what games you like to play, this is really designed for those like arcade titles. But it definitely brings a cool and kind of satisfying mechanical form factor where you're turning it one direction, you slide it back in your pocket. I took my AYN Thor handheld with me, which is the dual screen flip model, the other day, and it's like enormous in my pocket. So it does not fit comfortably there. It is not a Game Boy Pocket, that is for sure. It's nice to have, but it's a little on the big side. So maybe this is a smaller form kind of device that might be good for people who don't want to have an enormous dual screen, kind of looks like a giant DS hanging out of your pocket. Activision collections were announced by Evercade. So they're coming out with a whole bunch of Activision, like the old 8-bit classics, including Pitfall 2, River Raid 2, Plaque Attack, these ridiculous titles for games that were a ton of fun. So if you're looking to kind of scratch that retro game itch, these might be a value-driven way to play those kind of Atari area early 2D classics. A cool mod called the Dreamcast Junior is being made by Wesk Mods. They are an infamous console modder, and they've created what looks like the cutest little Dreamcast you've ever seen in your life. It's a miniaturized Sega Dreamcast that uses real trimmed-down original Dreamcast motherboards. So that is wild, and it's crazy to see how tight we can fit things in today compared to kind of the console size and form of yesteryear. It's very fun. There's another manufacturer who is working on like a Commodore 64 piece of hardware. It's called the Commodore 64 Ultimate, and they are basically building a Commodore 64 by remaking, even down to the silicone chips, all of the original hardware. And their purpose for it is to be able to play original Commodore 64 games with a couple of games that were unreleased at the time that are now they're releasing as part of this project. And it's interesting for sure. It's kind of targeting this part of the purist community that really wants zero input lag, wants to be able to use all their original peripherals. But I just really don't know who this is. I don't know if this is going to appeal to enough people to justify the financial commitment that they're making to make this thing. Because when you've got devices that are able to get very close to zero input lag, that are doing that through emulation that can also play a bunch of other games, I don't know that a high price point for this type of device is really going to appeal to that many people. Certainly, it will appeal to some of them. And maybe this is really just targeting the purists, and that's what they want to do. But it feels like almost you're targeting such a small portion and a growing smaller even portion of the gaming community that you're going to have a hard time finding the people that want to support a project like that. So I'll put that in the cool, but maybe definitely not for everybody category. Let's go ahead and jump into the game list. Kind of a quiet week for Nintendo. We are looking forward to the new Yoshi game coming out in a week or two here. Super Mario Galaxy 2 did get a story update via the Switch 2. It adds brand new unlockable storybook chapter in an epilogue that focuses on Rosalina after players clear that final chapter and earn a Power Star. This is kind of a big surprise because it's a patch dropping for a legacy title. It's very rare for Nintendo's older catalog. But from what I've heard, people really love the closure that it brings to Rosalina's arc. But they're kind of holding out for the next game at this point as well. How cool would it be if we got a new Super Mario Galaxy game? They should have probably coincided that with the movie. I know they're talking about, though, the next Mario is already clearly in the works and has been for years. It's been a while since Super Mario Odyssey. And so it's time for the next Mario game. Maybe we get some news about that this year. That would be very exciting. And I would be thrilled if they went back to the Mario Galaxy direction of game for the next title. PlayStation had a little bit busier week with Saros coming out this week. It is a very visually stunning game. It's a third-person kind of arcade roguelike shooter. It mixes these really heavily structured cinematic moments with like really fast arcade combat. So if you're looking for a balance between super fast, like arcade style fighting and movement and also story, this might be a good game for you. What I've heard is pretty lukewarm reviews. The critics are citing really repetitive combat and kind of a lifeless world, even though it looks really pretty and the production value is high. The core issue here is it's a kind of a clash. Instead of the two working together with like arcade loops helping to move you forward and keep you engaged in the game while also having a lot of story happening. And instead of working together to kind of balance each other out, a lot of the reviewers are saying it kind of feels like two games that kind of don't fit with each other. So not sure what the future will bring for that game in particular. It was a very large project. Microsoft Flight Simulator, no, I'm not putting this in the wrong category. It does belong in the PlayStation category. Brought in PlayStation VR 2 support this week, which is weird, but awesome. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 has patched in support for the PlayStation VR 2 headset. So you can actually play Flight Simulator more of a simulation than you've ever been able to before, using PlayStation VR. That is arguably the definitive way to play this particular simulator, kind of allowing you to sit in the cockpit, which is very cool. The PlayStation Plus lineup for May includes games like EA Sports FC26, the Chinese Ming Dynasty, Souls-like Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, and a hand-drawn Metroidvania called Nine Souls, SOLS, like the sun. And those are coming out for all PS Plus subscribers as of May 5th, so only a couple more days before that. It looks like a pretty strong lineup. It has a kind of wide variety of different games. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is coming out on July 9th. There is a kind of a standard edition and also a collector's edition if you have $200 to spend on a collector's edition. I don't have $200 to do that, but it sounds pretty cool. This is a total ground-up remake, so not just a remaster. They are using a brand new engine. They are bringing back features like whaling and bell diving, and they're bringing back legendary ships. Combat is also revamped to be a little more contextual instead of the RPG-styled, like leveled combat. And there's also a new Pathfinder autopilot mode for ships that's going to be included. I remember sailing being pretty difficult in the first game, if memory serves. So I'm looking forward to see how this one ends up panning out with the things that they're changing. The amount of things that they're changing, taking out the modern day content completely from the game and keeping it just solely based in that era of time. That's something they did based on player feedback. People said the thing we don't like about this game is these weird, like, sci-fi modern day segments. And so they just took it out and the game still stands on its own, which tells you that stuff probably maybe shouldn't have been included in the first place. I don't know. But they made a change based on player feedback, and now hopefully the game's going to be better for it. Arc Raiders got a PSSR update. It is integrating that super resolution technology for PS5 Pro. So it's using an upscaler to make it look even better than it's ever looked before. And then finally, the Final Fantasy VII remake is on track. The developer is saying, yep, we're actually on track to finish this remake trilogy. And it's proceeding on time and on schedule. So that's exciting for Final Fantasy fans. Under Xbox news, we've got a shiny new logo that the Xbox fans of the world are going crazy for. We love it. And I say we because I am an Xbox fan. I love this logo. It makes me feel more like I did back when they had the original like Xbox logo, kind of mixed with the 360 logo, but somehow modernized. It's amazing. I'm a big fan of the new logo. It's already on the background of my Xbox. I feel like this is a great first step towards Xbox is back kind of feeling. And based on the internal memo that was released on the We Are Xbox by Asha Sharma and that team, It looks like they're really trying to fix some of the fundamentals around the platform and kind of rekindle Microsoft's mojo around the Xbox that they kind of have lost over the last couple of years. So I am excited for the direction that Xbox is taking. We'll talk more about that in the future. Forza Horizon 6 is getting closer every day. May 19th is when that comes out. This game features a map based in Tokyo that is 5 times larger than any previous urban area in the series. I've seen a lot of video clips comparing and contrasting like snow and rain with like the 4th game and the 5th game. And it looks like this one is going to be just off the charts beautiful and hopefully a lot of fun to drive in. They've redone everything from the sounds to the weather effects to the way that the world looks. So I'm excited to see this game in person. Aphelion was a game I mentioned last week. It is came out on April 28th. It's a sci-fi action title on this like Planet 9, which kind of has some horror elements built in. It is an indie title, and unfortunately, reviewers are praising like the audio team's work. So the soundscape is very immersive. So you're using something called syncopated echolocation for the monsters. So if you got a good pair of headphones, this would be a fun game to play. Unfortunately, a lot of the other issues that have come up with the game are making it a lot less fun to play. Early game bugs, a really steep difficulty curve are leading to reviews across the board that are generally unfavorable. People are struggling. So hopefully this is a game they can patch some of those issues and make it more interesting. It's been a while since I've been amazed by sound design in a game, and it sounds like this game might be one to watch for that. Next week on Xbox, we have a couple of games that are releasing, most notably the Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight game. That one's going to be a big one to watch because it's Lego, and I've kind of been on the fence with Lego games for a while. I either really like them until I really don't, and I just don't want to play them anymore. Maybe I just played too many Lego games. I don't know. But this one is riffing off of the Batman The Dark Knight legacy, going through the films. So it looks like it could be really good. That comes out various timing between May 4th and May 8th over the next week or so. Under PC and or mobile games, we have a game called Aboveland Rhapsody, which I saw in action earlier this week. It is a co-op action RPG roguelite. Talk about a mashup of different types of games. Set on floating islands atop mythical creatures. The players, you wield these bizarre, like dual-wielding weapons that range from swords to folding chairs and fireworks and basketballs. And it's just weird. You almost have to see it. It's kind of like Elden Ring style combat, but it is very chaotic and playful and colorful. And yeah, it's great. You have to see it to believe it. So just go watch a video of Aboveland Rhapsody. An update came to Power Wash Simulator 2, which is the weirdest game that people have really latched onto and loved that I have seen in a while. I have power washed in real life, and so I can say it is very satisfying to use a power washer. And these folks made a simulator game where you power wash stuff, and then it was so successful that they made Power Wash Simulator 2. And now they're bringing an expansion to it, which I never would have anticipated. It is the Star Wars expansion. You get to control a P0W2 labor droid to clean 6 iconic Star Wars locations, including the Lars homestead, which has the potential for all kinds of awkward. Hopefully they steer clear of that. An X-Wing and also a Star Destroyer bridge. So that is coming out in summer 2026. And it's going to be on all different platforms. Looks like it's only $10. So that could be pretty fun. 007 First Light is the next James Bond game. It is an origin story and a stealth action game. I've seen lots of news on this one. I've read articles about it. It looks like it's kind of trying to be a stealth game, but if things go crazy, you don't just fail the mission because you weren't quiet enough. You get this mode that's called a license to kill phase, and it's all about momentum and still making the mission a success. So that's looking really good. The game itself looks beautiful. It's going to be the most detailed game to date. Like the last James Bond game I played was probably Nightfire on the GameCube. So it's been a while. I am excited to see Mr. Bond coming into the modern day with this game. I've mentioned the game Windrose in the last couple of weeks. It is a pirate co-op survival game. Has kind of some combat and naval boarding battles. They added a massive update to that this week with 40 building pieces, and the devs are actually teasing a kind of dangerous new volcanic ash biome area. So this is a smash hit. This game has gone past 1.5 million copies sold in just over 2 weeks, which for a smaller developer is insane. There is a massive desire for co-op survival crafting games. So keep an eye on Windrose. Another game called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Empire City. This is from my friend Taylor, who loves the Ninja Turtles more than anybody else that I know. Reviewers are calling it kind of buggy and repetitive. It has the potential to be has like a parkour kind of system and a co-op premise. However, there are a ton of bugs that are still a part of this game. It is only in VR, and so the audience for this game is pretty small. Unfortunately, I don't feel like this game is probably making a good case for VR because it's just not good. So that's too bad for the Ninja Turtles and for the VR community. Subnautica 2 is only a little ways away, coming out on May 14th. And that has locked in that date as an early access release date. So they are pushing things forward in spite of all of the kind of issues behind the scenes that they had earlier this year with that developer. People being fired, trying to avoid paying bonuses. It was not a good situation. And hopefully that's being remedied, and this game will be wildly successful, both for the people who made it and for the people who want to play it and enjoy it. Last on the game list is Star Wars Galactic Racer. This just kind of leaked over the last week. It's looking like maybe an October release date, but this is kind of like the first news I've heard of anything like this. It is a Star Wars racing game that is made by former Burnout and Need for Speed veterans. I am a big fan of Burnout and Need for Speed as well. Some of the games in that series were better than others, but fantastic racing games. It's going to feature a solo revenge campaign and also player versus player online with think pod racers, speeder bikes, land speeders. This is everything Star Wars put into a Need for Speed world, which could be a lot of fun. So that brings us kind of to the end of today's episode. We've got a question from April, which is, what was your favorite game that you've played in the last year, old or new? And what made it amazing? So I wanted to share some of the answers that I've gotten to that. My wife said Roller Coaster Tycoon, classic, is something that she played, hasn't played since she was a kid, and found out that it was a huge stress reducer to play this. I think she spent 3 hours one day just playing it in an afternoon, worrying about imaginary people, riding imaginary roller coasters, and not worrying about real life. And so that's fantastic. That is a legitimate case for playing a game every once in a while, in that it just allows you to disconnect from all the stuff that you tend to worry about without even realizing it. So I got a couple of other answers. A couple of fun ones were some retro games, which I love that people are answering with retro games because, they're just as fun today. Somebody said The Sims is something they get into on a semi-regular basis and might be doing again. Crash Bandicoot was mentioned. My friend Levi said NASCAR 99 on the N64. Levi, I love it. I love it that you're still playing, first of all, on an N64, and NASCAR 99, definitely not a game that I would have picked, but I can see as a fan of NASCAR that you may have loved that game. So that's great. Another one that I heard was Sea of Stars. I had to even look it up because I had not heard of this one. It's like an RPG, or it plays like an RPG out of the past. This is Mark said. It plays really well and has an incredible story. It brought the nostalgia of early gaming while still maintaining the updates of modern gaming. So that is one that I'm probably going to have to check out. It looks really beautiful, like a lot of fun to play. Tyler said, I'm really into a game called UFO 50. It's got 50 retro Genesis-style games, but with more modern sensibility. I play one a week with friends as kind of like a book club, and then we talk about it. How cool is that? Bringing back not only kind of the retro-style games, but also the community that once surrounded those retro-style games. Tyler, I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Question for next month. So what we're doing with this is one question a month where you get to, I'll ask kind of the same question all month long and then pull together some of the answers. And what we should end up with is kind of a good list of games. Hey, here's some games that I might not have known about. And that's kind of what this next question for the month of May leans into. The question is this: what game are you most looking forward to that it seems like nobody else is talking about? What is the game that you've been watching and it seems like the news isn't covering this? I don't hear my friends talking about it, but it's going to be amazing, and this is why it's going to be amazing. I want to hear about that game for you. And then at the end of the month, we'll end up with kind of a custom list of games that people from the community are excited about, and hopefully we get kind of a list to be watching at the same time. So I hope you have a fantastic week. That is it for today's show, and I will see you next Saturday.